Is Kurt Bryant here? Please take your seat up front.
Feels like jury selection. Watch your step there, Kurt.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francis Barricchio, and on behalf of the Tuolumne County State of Jefferson Committee, I would like to thank all of our candidates for attending and thank you, our audience, as well. We are honored to sponsor this event tonight. Unfortunately, not all of the candidates were able to attend, and some were not able to commit to coming into the last minute. However, we are happy to have those of you who are here tonight. There is a candidate in the audience tonight, and I would like to have you please stand up. Who are you? Laura? There she is. Laura Craig, and she's running for our district attorney. And thank you for coming. And after our event, we'll have a meet and greet, and all of you are invited to hunt them down and ask them questions and meet them yourself. Who else stood up? Did somebody else stand up?
David Whitman, the assessor recorder.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and we'll find you afterwards and ask you questions of our own.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, as I said, after our question and answer segment, we will invite all of you to have some coffee and cookies and visit with all of the candidates who are up here tonight. You will have an opportunity to share your concerns and ask some questions that you may have of your own. But before we begin, I would like to introduce Aaron Nazaro, who will give us a brief statement about the state of Jefferson and what we represent.
How are you guys? All right, I'm gonna read this to you without looking like I'm reading something. Okay, there's a large group of citizens in the rural northern counties of California who filed a lawsuit in federal court, Citizens for Fair Representation versus Secretary of State Alex Padilla. We believe California has become too large to govern fairly. Those of us in rural northern part of California feel we are not being fairly represented due to the delusion of vote and lack of representation. Of the 80 California State Assembly representatives, we in these rural counties have 6. Of the 40 California State Senate members, we have 3. That is 111 versus 9. 111 southern state representatives impose regulations on rural counties. Our 9 elected California representatives have little to no voice. Laws that benefit southern cities and counties do not reflect the values and needs of the state rural residents. From these regulations and restrictions, many of the rural counties have been impoverished through loss of industry, jobs, the addition of higher taxes and regulations. The rural counties have no chance of proper representation under the current government structure. Urban voters make decisions that adversely affect rural areas, whether intentional or not. Our votes will never count due to this imbalance. The Citizens for Fair Representation is the complaint, the lawsuit. The State of Jefferson is the remedy. It's a legal procedure provided by Article 4, Section 3 of the United States Constitution. We believe it's time to form a 51st state, one where we can right the wrongs we feel have been thrusted upon us. The State of Jefferson would include 23 rural counties and approximately 1/3 of northern geography of California, all the way to the Oregon border. Our state's population would be roughly 1.5 million. Numerous fiscal studies have concluded that we would be viable from day one. You can review this and much more on our website at SOJ 51. And I'd just like to say that Jefferson, we're nonpartisan. You know, it's not about what party you stand for or your ideology. It's we're all in this together. We're all Tuolumne County. We have I lost it for a second. Anyway, without any representation or little to no representation, you guys have your work cut out. We have one senator, and we split that senator with 7 other counties. That's ridiculous. So, you know, you guys are going to be, whoever gets elected, you guys are going to be fighting with California, fighting with Sacramento, just to bring home scraps once in a while, because you have no voice. You might think you have an answer, but there's really no representation in this county, no matter what party you stand for. So just keep that in mind, you know, when you see us Jefferson people. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. See, that wasn't so bad. Clark Broadcasting, we ain't. Okay, but we're gonna try our hardest. Okay, tonight we're gonna mix things up a little bit, and we're gonna start our questionings with the supervisor candidates for 2 rounds before we move to the treasurer, tax collector, and then we're gonna go to the city council, and then we're gonna end up back with the supervisor candidates. Okay, so let's get started. Our first question will be for the supervisors.
Question for you, Francis. Question for you from the front.
Up there.
I believe you said in the phone call we're going to do introductory statements.
We are.
Okay,
So I'm
I
getting.
heard you started with the questions. Okay,
Right,
thank you.
and I did say that, but we're starting our questions with the supervisors, and we're gonna go to the introductories, open statements, all the way around. And we also have our city council people up front here, so we can't all fit right there. So, we're gonna start from left to right with our opening statements, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Okay, so our first candidate, Ryan Campbell, is running for Supervisor District 2. Oh yeah, let me tell you that as well. When you have 2 minutes to give us your opening statement. When you have 15 seconds left, Nancy, our timekeeper, is going to raise the State of Jefferson flag. And then when your time is up, you'll hear a slight tap on the table. Or you hear the bell on her cell phone. Okay? And if that doesn't work, I'll stop. BJ Hansen, where are you? Okay. So,
Well, he only gave us 10 seconds, so 15 is great.
We're generous. We're generous. Okay, go ahead, Ryan. Thank you.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you very much to the State of Jefferson Club for inviting me to this event. I'm very happy to be here and to talk to you a little bit about my concerns for our community, what I'd like to see happen, and why I am the best choice to be your representative for the 2nd District. So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a rural community about an hour and a half outside of Tuolumne County. I've lived here for more than the past decade. In that entire time, virtually everything I've done in this community has been some form of public service, whether it's being a relief worker at the library, working for behavioral health with regard to substance abuse and mental illness programs, or my current role with the Office of Emergency Services as an analyst for the county's tree mortality project. So I live near Crystal Falls. I live kind of right between Crystal Falls and Bellevue Oaks. And my wife and I are raising 2 little girls. Or, I'm sorry, 3 little girls. Oh my gosh. 3 little girls, and, you know, we spend a lot of our time nurturing them, providing for them, making sure that they have a future and they have opportunities, and I'd like to do that for the rest of the county. Now, as I said, I work full-time, my wife works full-time. We are working people. I think that's something that's missing on the Board of Supervisors. We need that perspective, somebody who is a working person, who represents those interests and has those kind of thoughts in mind. We need to focus not on single issues. We need to look at the issues that direct our community that are most important to our community, not things that are happening in Washington, D.C. or Sacramento. We need to look at our roads, road improvements, We need to improve our local economy with broadband internet, and we need to protect and support our libraries and parks and recreation. My name is Ryan Campbell. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll move to Mr. Dave Tichnell, candidate for Supervisor, District 2.
Hello, and thanks for having me here. Anybody ever been out Bald Mountain Road, out past the Turkey Ranch?
Yeah.
And if you keep going all the way to the end, there's a little Phoenix powerhouse out there. Right behind that powerhouse is an old cement structure that was the original powerhouse. My grandfather worked there, and my father was born and raised out there on that ranch, and I was raised on that cattle ranch too until I was about 6 years old, and then my family moved to Columbia. I went K through 8 at Columbia with a 2-year stint in Shaw's Flat at the old grammar school up there, and then high school at Sonora High. So I am definitely a true Tuolumne County guy, and I decided finally to throw my hat in the ring here because of a lot of things that have been going on lately that I just can't abide by. My leadership style has always been one of making decisions, even if they're tough decisions. And when I see something is wrong, I got to jump in and fix it. I see things like Sanctuary State, and nothing's going on about that locally. I didn't like that. I see things like Jefferson that I want to see happen, and we worked really hard to make something happen with that, and nothing happened. I saw our supervisors give themselves a raise as much as 27%. I stood right there and asked them if they were going to do that, don't profit from it personally. But they went ahead and passed it and are profiting by it personally. So it's things like that that really bother me. And so I've always been a guy that I'm not going to sit at home and yell and scream and complain or throw my shoe at the TV. I got to get out and try to do something about it. And that's why I'm here tonight, and that's why I'm going to do everything I can to earn your vote and get out there and try to fix some of these problems. Tuolumne County has some real serious budget problems coming up, and they're going to take some very painful decisions to get through them. And I'm the guy that will go ahead and get that done. I may not make any friends, and I know some people are going to hate me, but we got to do something to get this county back on the right track. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. And our next candidate is Merv Cancio, running for candidate Supervisor, District 3.
Thank you, Francis. You got that right.
I did it right, huh?
One moment, please.
Oh.
I was gonna give you 20 minutes.
Sorry, I can't talk that long.
Not my vote.
I'll read up.
I think some of us up here would probably take that.
Okay, we're ready now.
Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Merv Cancio. I'm running for District 3. I have lived in the county since 1971, 47 years. I have worked at Curtis Creek School as a teacher for 34 years, and I am a resident of Twainhart for 27 years. So I've been in the county, being involved in different aspects of the community. So it's time for me to think about retiring, and so why not be Board of Supervisor and make a difference in a different arena? Be useful for all the skills that I've learned throughout my life, which is to be fair, to be consistent, and to be committed to making our county a better place to be. Being in the classroom, that's where I have made a difference with the kids and with the parents, to be able to guide them, to foster them, to support them through their education. But at some point in time, gotta do something different. So here it is. I'm gonna put the target on my back to represent everybody. I won't be able to please everybody, but I have the strong suit of mine is to be able to bring everybody to the table. Let us discuss the issue respectfully. We might not agree, but we can come to a good solution if we have the same goal, which is what's going to be best for the community, for the children, for the families, for the elderly. And so my strength will allow me to be a good supervisor. And with that, I will have the time, because it takes time to build relationships, to get to know you. What are your concerns? What are your ideas? What can we do together to make things better?
Thank you. Our next candidate, Anaya Kurt, District 3.
Correct, you said my name right. Good job.
Okay.
Naya Kirk, yes.
With a big name like Barricchio, I try to really hard.
Let's keep it
Okay,
easy, Kirk.
Supervisor, District 3.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Anaya Kirk. I am 33 years old, and today this afternoon when I got out of the shower, I was going to shave, but I thought, you know what? If I have a little scruff, people will believe that I'm 33. So, I have a little scruff for you guys. I was born and raised, my grandparents, my grandfather was a World War II vet, Lieutenant Colonel. My grandmother was a first lieutenant. My grandpa Dante, who I was actually named after, was a Marine mechanic, air flight mechanic. And so they settled in the Bay Area, but then my father and mother, they wanted a quieter, better way of life for the family that they were planning to start, so they moved up here. I was born up here along with my brother and my sister, born and raised in New York Village. And I met my wife. I went to Twin Heart School. I almost had Lori as my teacher. My brother did. I was one grade behind, but just missed her. And I met my wife in, I think it was 4th grade, and in 5th grade I told my brother I was going to marry her, and I married her. And now we have 2 beautiful children, and she is an elementary school teacher at Soulsbyville, and they are the highlight of my life. You know, I was born and raised here. I'm going to die here. I don't ever plan on retiring out of state. I don't ever plan on moving out of state. A lot of my friends, a lot of people I know who I work with, they're moving because they're tired of the politics. They're tired of being overtaxed and, like he said, being underrepresented. So I'm here for the long haul. I know I've joked with some of the board supervisors. There's a lot of supervisors that may not be here in 20 years, and I hope they have good health. But 20 years from now, I'll be 53. And 20 years from now, my daughter and my son will be 26 and 28. So I'm here for the long haul. I have my community's best interests at heart. So my name is Anaya Kirk. I'm running for District 3 Supervisor, and I would appreciate your support and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Aaron Rasmussen, running for candidate as Supervisor, District 3.
Yes, before I start, I'd like to recognize my mother in the front row over here, Rain Rasmussen, my brother, Joe Rasmussen, and my son, little mini-me, Wesley. My wife's working right now. She works 12-hour shifts over at the hospital. She's delivering babies. She'll be very tired here soon. We've been together since high school. We've been married 15 years, and we've gone through a lot. But I was born and raised on Main Street in Tuolumne. Raised like many people in Tuolumne. Not a lot of hardships at home. Not a lot of opportunities, and I weathered them. And I weathered them mainly because of this community. And my godfather was a neighbor of mine, and he took me to church, took me under his wing while my mom and dad worked. When I was 9 years old, I took care of my sister, fed her, got our bottles ready, diapers changed when my mom and dad worked, and slept. So, coming from a background like that, many that knew me wondered why I didn't go into drugs, why I didn't get in trouble, why I'm not sitting in the detention center someplace. And again, I contribute that to this community, and I want to see that continue. After high school, I went right in the military, served 12 years in the Army Reserves and the Civil Service, served 11 months in Iraq. I was also injured in Iraq. I'm currently 80% disabled. When the Army wouldn't let me re-enlist after 12 years of perfect service, it was devastating, but at the same time, I was very thankful in looking back, because I was able to stay home with my son and raise him, a stay-home dad, and that is priceless to me. And so I hope to continue serving my community just like I've always served. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for your service as well. Okay, our next candidate is Lori Sylvester, also running for Supervisor, District 3.
Thank you. I'd like to make a present of one of my favorite photos of the year, and the spirit of the two men. I know it's hard for folks to see, but I took it at the Martin Luther King event, and it's one of the State of Jefferson members, and they came together eye to eye, shaking hands, and in conclusion, after very spirited exchanges at Martin Luther King event, So I'd like to keep that spirit of respectful inquiry here this evening too. When visiting Monticello, I gathered seeds from Jefferson's garden, and he developed hundreds of horticultural varieties, and these morning glories are his, and I put them in a basket in the back. So feel free to take something from Thomas Jefferson tonight. These are ones that he developed, and they invited us to share the seed, and I share that with my community in your namesake. When you meet a person, it's easy to dismiss the other one based on points of disagreement, but it takes real work to find commonality and similar interests. Coalitions are built from groups who hold divergent ideas, but they find agreement in other areas. And Jefferson removed Indians from their homeland and held slaves shouldn't be dismissed, yet he spoke several languages, did surveying, math, philosophy, was a farmer, and amateur archaeologist and a vintner. As a sideline, he was a principal author of the Declaration of Independence and the third president, but with him I share a number of interests. I'm not affiliated with the state of Jefferson, so an important question to ask me is this: how do you treat constituents who do not have the same affiliation or the same views? When a supervisor holds strident positions, it shuts down others with differing views. I consulted with multiple sides in each project and believe the concerns of the intimidated and those unable to attend the meetings must be heard.
Thank you, Lorraine. Our next candidate is Michelle Roney. She's running for tax collector and treasurer.
Yes, good evening. My name is Michelle Roney. I live in Groveland with my husband of 7 years. I was born and raised in San Jose and moved to Tuolumne County in 2006. I began working for the county in 2013 as the revenue recovery manager in the treasurer tax collector's office. My work history includes being the assistant to the controller at San Jose Harley-Davidson, the California district manager at a coffee roasting and wholesale company, and for 6 years I held an accounting position at Pine Mountain Lake Association. My education includes a master's degree in business administration and management and strategy, as well as a bachelor's degree in accounting. I decided to become a candidate for this position because I want to be able to continue to serve our community, and I believe that my office experience and education will be beneficial to the county. So this office oversees 3 divisions, the Treasury, Tax, and the Office of Revenue Recovery. And I'm confident that I'm the right person for this role because for the past 5 years, I've been trained in all aspects of these 3 departments. I'm responsible for making sure that operations run smoothly and that decisions are made that affect the department in the absence of the treasurer tax collector. So during my time as a revenue recovery manager, my team and I have increased department revenues year over year and found ways to streamline processes which have helped to reduce expenses and assist our customers in a timelier manner. So during these tough budgetary times when the county is looking at service cuts and furloughs, if elected, my top priority will be to eliminate the training gap that exists today between the departments by cross-training all staff members. This will provide additional resources for each of our departments, which will balance out our workload, maintain our collections and revenue, and provide great customer service for you. Thank you.
Okay, moving down to our city council candidates, we'll begin with Colette Such.
Thank you. I'm Colette Such. Sorry. I arrived in Sonora as a hopeful 18-year-old. I fell in love immediately with these oak-studded hills, the dome, the red church, the courthouse. I loved that I could go downtown and buy a quart of paint at the local hardware stores. I loved that I could go to Cervantes and buy a quart of milk. I've spent my life in service to Tuolumne County. I worked at Tuolumne General Hospital for 35 years, the last 25 of those years in management. And while I was there, I learned fiscal responsibility, and my compassion only deepened. When Tuolumne General closed, I moved to VNA Hospice, where I was a program administrator. I learned never to delay difficult conversations and to particularly listen to those with whom I disagree. And from there, when I retired, I went to Columbia College, where I serve on the Columbia College Foundation Board as its president. And I fell in love with the work and its daily miracle. I'll bring the same passion, dedication, vision, integrity, and heart to my work on Sonora City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we go to Kurt Bryant.
Hello, my name is Kurt Bryant, and I'm going to tell you why I signed the petition for Jefferson when I was in high school. I signed the petition because you're nonpartisan, and I am strongly nonpartisan. It's everything I believe in. Fair representation, regardless of who you are or what you believe. That's fair, and that's how democracy needs to run. That's the only way it can run smoothly without any hassle between citizens, because that's not how it's supposed to work. We are come together for the best of the community. That's all I believe in. That's the foundation of all my beliefs here. That's why I'm here. It's to represent people in my age group who have not represented themselves, so I want to represent them. I want to represent you guys because you're nonpartisan, and I love that. So, I will believe that until the day I die, because I'm American, and nonpartisan is, I believe, American. It's the way that you, between Americans, will act, because it is nonpartisan. You are friends until, yes, presidential election day. That is where you may separate. But in the cities, in the counties, you're nonpartisan, and I believe that. So, thank you all for being in that party, that preference, and how that ideology of how to run your counties, your cities, and your state. So, thank you. My name is Kurt Bryant, and I am running for Sonora City Council, and I am in support of you.
Thank you. During our meet and greet, we have one more candidate for you to hunt down and ask him questions and hear about what he has to say. Jim Garaventa. Can you raise your hand, everybody? There he is. He'll be here for our meet and greet session, so please find him and let's drill him. Okay. Now we're going to get going on our questions. Our first two rounds will be for our supervisors, and then we'll move on to the other candidates before coming back to the supervisors. So our first question will begin with Ryan, and then move on down the line for all of them. The question is, would you support a resolution that Tuolumne County will abide by the Constitution of the United States and all federal laws?
Would I support a resolution that Tuolumne County will abide by the Constitution? Is that the question?
Well, the question is, should the powers to be pass laws that are not part of the Constitution or the federal law? For example, sanctuary state.
Are we talking about sanctuary state? Because I can talk about that.
That's one issue.
Is that the question?
It wasn't, but it can be.
Okay. Well, I'll answer. I'm not sure what the question's getting at, but so this governing body does follow the Constitution. That is the law. Every supervisor takes an oath of office to abide by the Constitution, to uphold and defend it. And I took that oath when I started working for the Office of Emergency Services, and I would continue it on as a supervisor as well. I believe very deeply in the foundations of our democracy and our republic that are enshrined in our Constitution. In terms of passing a supervisorial resolution about it, that seems a little redundant to me. I'm not sure, because they are already bound by the Constitution of the United States and the state of California. But I would certainly support following the Constitution, and I would oppose any position that I expressly believe was against the Constitution.
Okay, thank you. And Dave, I did forget to mention that you have 1 minute to respond to the questions. Okay.
Okay. The United States Constitution has enumerated powers for the federal government. What that means is that we tell of the federal government exactly what they can and cannot do. And we've listed those and enumerated them, give them numbers. Anything that is not enumerated or not expressly given to the federal government reverts back to the states and to the people themselves. So in the question of whether or not the county should sign a resolution saying it will support all federal rules and the Constitution, I say yes, because there comes a time, according to the 10th Amendment, that the states' rights will take over if the federal government tries to do something that is unconstitutional. So there's a really good balance there. So yes, we should have a resolution against sanctuary cities, and we should have resolutions against some of the other things that the crazy people in California legislative, Senate and legislature do. So, yeah.
Thank you. Merv?
So unless I get a little bit more specific, my heart says yes to the Constitution. Simple as that. For me to elaborate something without more data, without more specific language, I'm going to go with my heart. Yes, I believe in the Constitution. I will follow the Constitution and be true to it.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm with Merv on that. Yes to the Constitution. If we're talking about specific instances like sanctuary state, the fundamental job of government is safety and security of its people. And so when you talk about sanctuary state, that's undermining the safety and security of its people, I believe. So exact verbiage, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but yes for the Constitution, but if the states, if you go to my website, aniakirk.com, I've already posted my stance on sanctuary state, and I would recommend that we would proclaim as a county that we're not going to support sanctuary state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Such an easy question is yes. To speak to the redundancy, being in government long enough, government does a lot of redundant things, so there's no problem with that. I would like to point out that if you read a few paragraphs down in the Declaration of Independence, one of the reasons why we left Britain, a tyrant, was obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners. That's exactly what our state's doing. Obstructing the law, federal law, when it comes to sanctuary cities, and a few other things too. So I'll end with that.
Thank you. Lori?
When I took the oath of office, I served as Board of Supervisor from 1999 to 2003. We take an oath to support the California Constitution and the federal Constitution. And every day the Supreme Court hears cases where people have disagreements with how people interpret. But we take the oath, I'll take the oath, and I stick by my oath. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Our next question will begin with Dave Tichnell. What do you believe are the main fiscal issues plaguing Tuolumne County, and what would you do to address them?
Well, the main problem we have right now is it's a basic business problem. You look at a profit and loss, or in government we call it revenue and expenses. And revenue and expenses have been going in opposite directions for a number of years, and that hasn't been addressed. I met with all the department heads over the summer and fall, and each one of them have been given the job of cutting their departments as much as they can, and reducing manpower and reducing services to a point now where anything more is going to severely affect the way the county operates. And yet we still have this big, wide gap between how much money we're bringing in and how much money that we're spending. Some people say it's because of the detention center and the jail, and yeah, those are going to add huge costs. Other costs are the PERS system and stuff. So the only way that we're going to be able to solve the problem is we have to get cut even leaner, and it's going to be very difficult for us for the next foreseeable couple of years.
Thank you. Merv?
So with that, it's going to take two folds. One would be to increase revenue, and that's through property taxes. So I would support smart growth, especially for growth that encourages affordable housing for families. Most of us here in the audience probably own your own home. I'm thinking about the young families that can't afford their own home. And so if it's a development that has specific clause, not necessarily clause, I suppose, a specific goal to get them into their own homes, I would support that, and that which would also increase the property tax. The second piece to that is that if truly there's a budget deficit, then it'll have to be with personnel. Because at Curtis Creek School, we had a big deficit that required cutting of personnel. And so it has to be done with a big piece. You can't just get a little piece here, a little piece there. It's going to have to be personnel.
Thank you. Nine.
So, growing the economy was a question, or dealing with the deficit? Dealing with the deficit. Okay, so fiscal issues. We have to grow our economy. If you grow the economy, you'll lift all ships. That means going in, cutting out any regulations that may be hindering businesses from coming in and starting. That means getting with the building department, loosening regulations on home building. When you're talking about affordable housing is unrealistic unless you restore property rights back to people. If you restore property rights back to people, they will build their own homes. That will bring people in to build. That'll supply and demand will go down, because if you have more rent, or more buildings, more people will rent, which will at least keep rent from flying through the roof. And then also forests. We have an amazing asset of our natural resources up here. If we get the federal and state, we don't even need their money. If we just get them to loosen their grip on us, we could go up there. We have, I call it the garden. We have our garden up there. Go out there, clean out the weeds, put people back to work, get industry going again. That would help. And then also, of course, we're gonna have to make there will be some cuts. It's gonna be a combination of a lot.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
I hear a lot of the same old, and I'm getting kind of tired of it. You know, Evan Royce, our outgoing supervisor, is a construction guy, and he's been fighting building regulations ever since he got in. That was his whole main point. And after 8 years, it's not anything we can do at the Board of Supervisors. It's at the state level, and that goes back to representation and what we're trying to accomplish here. Representation. And at the same time, I spoke on Monday, it's, you know, if California can ignore laws, why can't we ignore the regulations of California and just build things that we need to build? We've got homeless out there that need shelters, need homes, but oh no, we can't build it. It's not going to, you know, it's going to hurt the environment. It's going to do this. It's not a code. You know, at the end of the day, we need to house people. There's much more that I want to say, but hopefully I'll get around to that.
You have 10%.
Okay, Lori?
Well, before building or accepting new infrastructure, does the local government clearly identify how future generations can afford to maintain it? So that's one of the things that we need to take a look at. Another one is, does the county government spend no more than 10% of its locally generated revenue on debt service? One of my concerns that I feel is a major fiscal crisis headed our way is the insurance issue. Many people are losing their insurance. National has pulled out. A number of other insurance companies are pulling out. And what runs our government are the taxes. And if our homes can't be insured and people have home mortgages that they can't pay anymore, we're going to have a massive housing collapse if we can't establish insurance pools for the people that live in this county. This county's critical crisis that's facing them right now, it doesn't need to wait for an election to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. We're losing our insurance companies, and that can completely collapse our housing market, and it can really ruin it for people that have mortgages. They can't keep their homes.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, when the state of Jefferson flag is raised, you still have 15 seconds. So we don't want to take away any of your time. Okay, our next question goes to...
Oh, I think I get a chance at this one, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So, this county has struggled with declining population and stagnant economic development for the past 10 years. We don't have enough economic activity in this county to support the services that we need. You can't cut your way to prosperity, which is what is being proposed. We need to invest in the future. We're not going to get ahead if we don't have the basic infrastructure that's going to provide jobs and provide opportunities for the next generation. I mean, how can we expect the county to grow when we have crumbling roads, and if a tech company wanted to, if a high technology company wanted to come in here, if Google wanted to set up a satellite office in our county today, where would we tell them to go? We don't have the infrastructure to support something like that, so we're never going to have that economic activity. We need to focus on those types of issues. We need to make this county better. I feel like a lot of what Board of Supervisors does is move chairs around on the deck of the Titanic. We need to right the ship. We need to steer away from that iceberg ahead of us, and we can do it. I'm planning on living here for the long haul, and I want to see it happen.
Okay, our question now goes to Michelle. The county treasurers are typically responsible for sending tax bills, receiving the funds, collecting overdue payments. Once received, the treasurer will disperse that money along various agencies. Please tell us specifically how your background and experience qualifies you for this position.
Thank you. I've been working in the office since 2013. I am trained in the computer system. I also am trained to collect the transient occupancy tax. I help train employees who come in and process all the payments. And I work with other counties. I'm part of an email chain. If we ever have questions, we just email to other counties and see how they do it too. So I work in the Treasury also. I work in and manage revenue recovery.
Okay, thank you. And now we have some questions for our city council candidates, and we'll begin with Kurt. If elected, what do you see as your biggest challenge facing you on the city council?
Getting the money to properly maintenance our community, our city. I'm talking maintaining our roads, our historic buildings, our police and fire department, our waterways, and our roads more heavily. That's gonna definitely be the big one. I've seen how bad that has hurt our fire department. The fire department just lost one of its crew members because it was totally ran by grant funding. So he is out of a job because we did not maintenance his job. We don't have the money to properly pay him on a wage basis. Our roads are, of course, crazy. We only got $83,000 a year to maintain 1/2 mile of road. So hopefully I can make more money for our roads, fire department, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Colette?
When we're looking at the budget in the next fiscal year, we have some pretty serious problems. We have unfunded liabilities in our CalPERS program in this city, which is not unusual. Many cities, counties, and states have it, and counties in the state have that problem. I'm kind of a budget wizard, if I do say so myself, and we'll review the revenue and profit and loss statements. I'll ask for line items on those statements to find out what money is coming in and where that money is going out. We have a 0.5 cent tax, sales tax in the city that was instituted for fire, police, and public works. I want to see where that money is going. A big concern for me is fire danger in this town. I think these hills are ready to burn, so we have to bolster our fire departments and our police departments. Thank you.
Okay. Question number 5. We're going to be going back to the supervisors, and we'll begin with Murd. What is your opinion about the supervisors giving themselves 27% raise given our fiscal situation?
The 27% came from studies for comparable salaries or payments for the supervisors. And so they use that as a benchmark to give themselves a raise because they believe that they were working hard and deserve that. I'm not gonna question that they gave themselves a raise. But for me, ethically, if we truly are in a budget crisis, I would not accept that 27%. Will I donate it like Aaron's good idea? I don't know yet. I'm not there. But was that a good thing for them to do? No. And I agree with Evan that he denied that request to have that increase. And so, for me, I would say no.
Thank you. And
Yeah, I also agree with Evan Royce on that stance. Again, formula with state jobs, they look across the board, like Merv said, and they formulate that. And so across the board, I understand they want to make it equal, but perhaps it should have been for income for the next supervisor in line. If the county's going to have to make cuts to its employees, then it should have to make cuts to their salary as well. So if I'm elected and I have to cut, roads 5%, well then I better be taking a 5% cut or whatever the formula is. And if you look at the big picture, most elected officials make a lot more money than that. But it's you're not going to get rich being a supervisor. I don't think it's about the money. I think it's more about your passion and your heart for the community you serve. So for me, that's where I would stand. If I'm going to cut people, I'm going to cut my salary as well.
Aaron.
So yes, as many of you know, I've already declared that if elected, I'm going to donate 27% of my salary every month to a local charity. The rest of it's going to go in a separate account just for business expenses to do the job. And at the end of the year, if there's anything else left, it's going to charitable organizations in the area as well. When it was first talked about comparing the Board of Supervisors' salary to everybody else's, I want to give you a perspective, okay? You go down to the valley, Board of Supervisors probably got about 100,000 constituents to deal with. Up here, got about 10,000 constituents to deal with. Does it say that we should be being paid the same as somebody else just because of a position? Is absolutely ludicrous. So, with that said, I also see this all the time. The Board of Supervisors sit up here and they don't know an answer, they don't know something, they look to council, Craig Pedro, or somebody else to say, hey, can you go figure that out for me, give me the answer and I'll figure it out later. Like, no, that's not.
Thank you. Lori.
Thank you. When I took over as supervisor, it was around $23,000, I think, when I was in there. And they just really kept declaring it as a part-time job. I know I did over 40, 45 hours a week and sometimes more. And what I felt about when I listened to them is now it's definitely a full-time salary. It's definitely something somebody can live on full-time. And somebody shouldn't be carrying another full-time state job at the same time. And there's one of the candidates in our race that wants to do two jobs. And when State of Jefferson cares about representation, you aren't getting representation if somebody's taking two government jobs full-time and they're supposed to be there for you. I asked for accountability for that much money. In Calaveras, they used to post where they met, who they met with every day, and I think that the board should be posting that. Some of our board members are working a lot of hours, so ask us to be accountable and then pay the salary.
Ryan.
So I'll just say at the outset, as others have said, I feel it was inappropriate for the sitting board members to have offered themselves a pay raise. I would be very uncomfortable doing that myself. I think all pay raises should apply to the incoming class of supervisors. That being said, I work full-time. I'm responsible for all county operations involving tree mortality. I love my job. I get a lot of satisfaction from it. I spend 60 to 70 hours a week working on just this one subject. When I'm elected, I will quit my job and focus solely on the Board of Supervisors. I will spend that time that I've spent attacking our tree mortality issue, and I'll spend it on all of you, because I believe that's what you deserve. Now, in terms of the pay raise, I think you don't want, I think that where it's been raised to is appropriate for this particular situation in this population. You don't want somebody in there who's independently wealthy who doesn't need the job. You need somebody who is in there because they want to spend their time focusing on you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
Okay, it's all well and good what everybody said here, but on April 4th last year, I was the only one standing at that podium telling these supervisors I thought it was a bad idea for them to vote themselves a pay raise. Nobody else here was down there making those statements. That being said, as a businessman and other businessmen I see out here, business people, you don't pay your employees by what somebody else tells you they can pay theirs. You pay your employees what you can afford, what your business will afford. I know government is not a business, but there's only certain amounts of money that we can afford to pay our employees. And right now, we've got a county payroll that averages about 30% higher than what the median income is for Tuolumne County residents as a whole. All of that has to be gotten a hold of, and it has to start with the supervisors.
Okay, our next question will be for Michelle. If elected, what do you see as your biggest challenge facing you as treasurer tax collector?
Right now, I believe that our biggest issue is our cross-training. We recently moved the Office of Revenue Recovery to where the Treasury was up front. So if you've been into our office in the last 6 months, you'll be asked a question, are you here for tax or revenue recovery, tax or revenue recovery? I hear that question all day long. I want all of our staff members to be able to help anyone that comes to that counter and make it just a seamless process. So that's what I feel like our biggest challenge is, especially during budget cuts and looking at other service cuts. I need to make sure that our staff is prepared for everyone that comes in.
Okay, we're going to go to questions for our city council. We'll begin with Colette. How do you address the homeless problem as it relates in the downtown area?
I was actually fortunate to be able to sit on the homeless task force for the last several months. And what I've learned while sitting on the homeless task force was important. We have APCA did a census last fall. We have 711 homeless people identified. Probably it's 20 to 30% greater than that. And that number, I think, was chilling for many of us. But the number that was really chilling was that we have 149 children. That's people under 18 years old are homeless. There was an article in the paper earlier, I think last week, 20% of the students at Jamestown Elementary School are homeless. It's a serious problem. And the homeless task force has been disbanded. And there's a new group that, the problem with the homeless task force was that it was just city residents. The new group will be city, county, churches. It will involve all the players, and that's where the solutions will be found. Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt?
First off, I would like to address how the 711 homeless persons was addressed. From law enforcement, I've learned that was conducted with anyone with an unstable home. So many of those 711 were actually just couch surfers. So there's strikingly less homeless here than what we think or what we say with that number. Second, I would love to work with our community organizations. I know how APCA is struggling right now. We need to help them. Our churches can also help a lot. They can also help our homeless. A pizza diet that I've seen them live with at the interfaith, at the drop-in center is harmful. Living off of only pizza does not motivate you to keep you energized to get a job. We need to start with their diet. I do believe that. Get them healthy, get them clean, and get them off the streets is how I would address that issue.
Okay, we'll go back to our supervisors. This time we're going to begin with Anaya. What is your opinion on legalizing marijuana for both recreational use and commercial cultivation?
Well, I think between everybody, I probably spent the most time on that one issue alone, over 220 hours, I'd say. Recreational medicinal marijuana is here to stay because of Prop 64. What we as a county were actually given the grace of by the state was to decide if we want to allow for big cultivation. And so, I put all my beliefs, I put all my ideas, all my feelings aside, and I went fact-finding. When I was in college, I was getting ready to go to law school, and I took some classes where I had to debate some issues, and I had to defend those 7 issues. So I said, you know what, this is a hot issue, I gotta go fact-finding. And it didn't take very long to find out the facts it's gonna be all bad for the county. It's common sense. If you look at what's going on in Calaveras, it's a mess. If you put on one light, all the bugs are going to come. We have illegal grows here, but if we allow for people to fly in here and set up shop, we're going to see our community change. And we as a county are not going to be on a level playing field as the rest of the states. So I'm a complete ban against it. I've door knocked on over thousands of doors, and I'm confident that my community is behind me on that.
Thank you.
This is definitely a huge issue. We need more than a minute to cover it. After Monday's debate, I believe I'm probably the most pro-cannabis candidate up here. Our county is, the fact of growing up here, just through my eyes, is our county has been victimized by cannabis, illegal cannabis, for decades. So here's our chance to bring it forward and work with it, get it under control, and actually start making some dividends off of it instead of it draining us. When the Board of Supervisors approved this last personal use laws or rules, whatever you want to call them, they turned around and hired another police officer, 2 code enforcements, and a desk jockey at the tune of $500,000. And we haven't even got to the point of actually making any money on this. And you can't tell me that a police officer doesn't know how to get a tape measure out and measure 1,000 yards and count your plants. This is absolutely ludicrous what the county's doing right now with this. We know what's gonna work, and we need to put it into action. Thank you.
Lori.
Well, the whole initiative was poorly designed, and I'd prefer to see the state and the feds address the problem uniformly, but for now, there's going to be these patchwork of local ordinances. Platitudes aren't going to fix the problems. They drive the issue further into the underground, further into the black market, further into the woods, and we need to address these issues. I do believe we need to take a look at whether we need a dispensary to keep from having illegal transactions that are going on. Now, if the county and if the people decide not to do that, we positively need to be working with the state to make sure that we're getting revenue from the places that are legally dispensing it, because we still have the impacts in this county. And those impacts need to be paid for, and we got to figure out a way to do it. So if we need to work with the state to make sure that we get legislation so the taxation that comes out of great big business, and I am against big business marijuana or large grows, we got to make sure that that money comes back into our county and addresses the impacts. So we have a lot of work to do. Whatever the board decides, whatever the people decide, we've got to get on taxation for the others.
So at the outset, I agree with what the candidate said, that the state law was poorly designed, and we will never have a clear answer on this until marijuana is no longer a Schedule I narcotic. I compared this situation to what we saw during the Prohibition era. The mafia wasn't created because alcohol was illegal. The mob wasn't created because alcohol was legal. It was created the minute it became illegal. The reason we're having these criminal elements associated with the marijuana cultivation in our community is exactly by the fact that it is illegal. And we have the tools in place to have legal cultivation in our community and have it be regulated in the way that we would like. And I believe the way we can do this is with zoning. We can zone areas that are permissible for legal cultivation. That way our law enforcement will know that any area that is not in those zones is illegal. And that is an easy, straightforward way to deal with this issue.
Well, marijuana certainly is a lightning rod issue. It's a cash business. Cash businesses are hard to track for purposes of taxation. Employees are all paid in cash. You give them a whole bunch of cash in their pocket, they're still going to look poor on paper, and they can take advantage of county services and food stamps and medical programs and things like that. So that's all a problem. My biggest thing is that marijuana is still cultivating legal marijuana is still a relatively new item, and there's every county in the state, and almost half the states are dealing with it right now. I want to see Tuolumne County be a groundbreaker on this issue. I've seen what happened in Calaveras. I've talked to Dennis Mills, one of the supervisors over there. He said, just don't go anywhere near it. I'd rather Tuolumne County sit on the sidelines, see if somebody else comes up with the solutions, and when something actually works, then we can talk about legalizing cultivation there.
And Murph.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to go ahead and say that medical marijuana was passed quite a few years ago, about 10 or 12 years ago. And so I believe that if people need to use marijuana for medicine, I'm all for that. As for the recreation, since Prop 64 passed, I believe that individuals have the personal responsibility to make choices for themselves. If they want to drink wine, please do it at your own leisure. Recreational marijuana, if that is your choice and you want to do that at home, that is your personal responsibility. But I want to focus most of my time with no on commercial marijuana. And I want to give you a different perspective, a different visual on this. If you're buying a house, do you want to live where it's blighted? If we have commercial growth, do you think that will attract businesses? Do you think that will attract people to buy things here or to move to here? Because, hey, I'm going to move to Tuolumne County because they have commercial growth. No, we're just going to prevent us. Can I just finish that last question? It's going to prevent us from attracting businesses to increase our revenue.
Thank you. All right, well, that concludes the questions that we had for all of you, and now we're going to start our closing statements. You will each have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and we're going to do this in reverse seating order this time, and we're going to start right here with Kurt.
Thank you all for coming here tonight. I'd like to speak with as many of you as possible tonight about your views on Jefferson. Like I said, I want to hear everyone's voice. So to hear more about Jefferson, I've not been too in tune with the social atmosphere of it. I'm actually really excited to hear more from you guys on it. So stick around for the aftermath Q&A from them. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
The issues that are most dear to me, and the reason I'm up here running, are the homeless problem in Tuolumne County and solutions, trying to find compassionate solutions, because it's only when we find solutions for homelessness that we can help the merchants solve their homeless problems. Also, just budget management in the city, and economic development. Marijuana in the city limits is that those policies have already been determined. 6 grows, you have to grow 6 plants, you have to grow inside. You can grow outside with a greenhouse only. I think that's a reasonable policy, and that's not anything that I think City Council will be addressing. But homelessness, I think, and fire are the major policies, are the major issues that need to be dealt with in these coming months and years. If you look at our streets, if you look at where Lineberg and Bradford Street intersect, there's a road failure there that I believe has been there for close to 2 years. It's just been barricaded. That seems really irresponsible to me. If you look at Hospital Road, there's also a huge pothole and a failure there. We have to maintain our infrastructure here. The Stewart Street bathrooms are another big problem. They're full of mold, and it's not something that can be handled by our Public Works Department. If we want to provide restrooms for our public, we have to solve that problem. And then there's the Vision Sonora, the work that's being done by Vision Sonora. There are a lot of things that need to be addressed. I'm sorry, I forgot to watch the flag.
You're at 4 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Michelle?
Okay, I want to close out tonight by saying that I will be ready for this position on day one. I know what it takes to run all three of these departments. I understand the strengths and the challenges that we have ahead of us. I have the office experience. I understand county policies and procedures. And a vote for me will mean a smooth transition into the next administration. So to learn more about me, I invite you to visit my website, michelleronning.com, and I really appreciate your vote. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for allowing me to interview for this position. It's not a popularity contest and it's not an affiliation contest. I really feel that my qualifications and my experience is 4 years as your past supervisor. I've had 7 years on the Tuolumne Fire Protection District. I had 36 years teaching. I had to look down, it's like really 36 years teaching in the young people in this community. And I've lived in this district since 1961. I've voted in every election since I was 18 years old in Tuolumne County. Even when I was away at school, they allowed it that I could vote in Tuolumne County. I voted every time. I've always been involved. As your supervisor, I'll take an active stake, or I'll actively invite the stakeholders and experts to the table, create a call to action. I'll continue to have monthly hours. We have them in Miwok, Twainhart, Tuolumne, and make sure that I regularly meet with the constituents. One of the things I want to close with are these concerns that come up in this campaign. Are those that use the phrases small government and less taxes going to cut fire or roads? Are they going to cut public safety? They need to declare their cuts. Is it going to be building safety, animal control, public health, veterans agencies, child support recovery, airports, libraries, or courts? What will it be? The DA, the public defender, recreation? I believe these are all really important. And I do believe that we need that tax money there. I'm hearing things about building department and loosening up. I know what an earthquake looks like in Turkey. I know what an earthquake looks like in Iraq. I know what an earthquake looks like where they do not have building standards. I don't want to live where we don't have those building standards and be pulling bodies out. I want to make sure that we uphold the standards, but that we get rid of the obstacles. There are obstacles that people are concerned about, and we're going to need to get rid of those obstacles.
Eric?
The two most important reasons Board of Supervisors exists is to maintain a working house that's effective, efficient, and then two, not run a deficit. A lot of the things are very easy after that. You got to prioritize. I have stated where I would like to see some of my cuts, and a lot of it was what I call luxury items, things that the county shouldn't be in business doing, like juvenile detention centers and tourism. But I haven't been scripted in a lot of my speeches, so you're going to have to bear with me on this one. This is very important. To the Tuolumne County State of Jefferson Board of Representatives concerning support of the State of Jefferson aims and ideals. I have always been a supporter of the State of Jefferson movement. More importantly, I've always been a strict supporter of the U.S. Constitution my entire life. Being framed on the foundation of the aims and ideals and literal interpretation of the Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1776. Therefore, I recognize the rights of the citizens to form new governments and secession if necessary for the security of the unalienable rights endowed by their Creator. I will always support the effort, first by peace and second by force, to institute liberty and justice for all people wherever they may be in the world. If elected as the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisor for District 3, I will support the efforts of the Tuolumne County State of Jefferson Board and their endeavors for fair representation for all citizens and counties of the current state of California, and if necessary, the formation of the State of Jefferson by any and all means. Be it resolved that if the Tuolumne County State of Jefferson Board ever presents evidence that I have failed to support the aims and ideals of the State of Jefferson, and after giving me a fair hearing, vote unanimously that I have failed in the support of a fair representation of all citizens, I will resign immediately from elected government office. I have 5 copies for the board.
Thank you.
Hello. You know, when I was in high school, I used to be a wild child. I was a semi-pro skier, and people told me you'll probably never graduate high school. Well, I graduated high school. Went on to college where I was told you'll probably never graduate college. I graduated cum laude in 2.5 years. I wrote 2 books, I published 1. I promoted my way up faster than any young person at the prison. I'm 1 step away from a captain. My father, at a young age, I could have been given ADHD medicine because I was a little hyper, but instead he informed me and he directed me that if you're going to work hard, I came home one time, I said, let me do half the math. He said, no, you're going to do quadruple the math. So to comments up here about 2 salaries, I say I get things done twice as fast as people. I've got grit that a generation doesn't know about. The majority of kids my age are looking for handouts. I work for stuff, everything that I have, I've worked for. I have dedicated my life towards, and I'm proud to say that I don't want government giving me anything free. I will work hard for it. Now, when it comes to, let me stick to the note right here. I'm a citizen. I'm concerned about the future of my children. Yet optimistic enough to stand up now while I can and do what is and secure a bright future for my children. I am educated and fearless. I am reasonable and transparent. I'm homegrown and here to stay for the long haul. And I believe in the rule of law, and I believe in representing the majority. I do not ignore the majority. And I do believe that the state of Jefferson is quickly becoming from a minority to a majority movement. When we're talking about the Declaration of Independence, let me read this to you real quick. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from consent from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organization powers and such that seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. We just want to be properly represented, we want to be safe, we want to be happy, and if I'm elected, I suggest we take this to the streets and we door knock and we educate a community and we bring this movement to the forefront. Thank you.
I don't have a position whether I'm pro State of Jefferson or against State of Jefferson. What I do want to say though is I want to encourage you to fight the fight, because obviously you guys are really passionate about your cause. And I want to encourage you with that, because I have been to many countries where you would be arrested here and now for speaking out to secede. And I encourage you again, because we live in a country where we can speak our mind, we can speak our ideals, we can speak our hearts without having to be threatened to go to jail. And so with that, you guys, go for it. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm the only one sitting up here without any notes. I mean, I'm either not as prepared, or everything that I believe is inside me, and I don't need to refer to notes on it. I am a grandfather, married, with grandchildren, and that's the most important thing in the world to me. I'm also involved in foster care, and I spent the last 20 years with my wife doing foster care or doing respite at the homeless shelter for the shelter for children. And I do have leadership experience. For the last 10, 12 years, I've been dealing with different groups, culminating in my experience here with the State of Jefferson. But most importantly, when it comes to making decisions, it requires a couple of things, at least I believe this, and that is you have to have a foundational faith in God. I don't care which God you believe in, but you have to have a foundational faith in something larger than you. And then you have to have an unshakable set of principles that you weigh everything on. And that's how I make my decisions. I use my morality gained from my faith, and then I look at my principles and my morality, and I decide decisions based on that. I don't decide them based on whether one group of people wants it more than another group of people, or somebody tells me this is the right thing to do or this is the wrong thing to do. It's always going to be up to me and what I believe inside of me. And so when I ask you for your vote, you're going to have to just weigh that in your own minds. Am I the kind of guy that will make the right decision when it comes time for it? Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So the way I see it, when you're looking at who you want to lead your community, you want the kind of person who's going to take notes and who's going to learn and who's going to use the skills that he's achieved over the past few years to provide better outcomes for our community. Now, I've been following the board for the past 10 years in various capacities. I've been contributing to this community. I started as a deputy editor for the Union Democrat newspaper as a watchdog of the board, making sure that they were responsible with our taxpayer dollars. Through the years, I've contributed to our community and responded to the board in various capacities. I have a long track record of understanding what they do and how we can use the tools of government to improve our community. Now, I have experience with business. I started my first business when I was about 15 years old, hanging Christmas tree lights. So I have experience in the private sector, and then now I have experience as a public servant with the Tree Mortality Project. Now, so we need specific things. It's nice to have lofty ideals, but what I care about is where the rubber meets the road, the basic functions of government, providing law enforcement, providing fire services, improving our roads, and providing basic infrastructure that can help us grow our economy. All of these other things that we're talking about, our budget shortfall, problems with affording basic services in our county, those are not going to be resolved until we focus on improving economic development, getting people back to work, getting people affordable housing. Those are the things that I'm concerned about. I mean, we can talk about what they're doing in Sacramento or Washington as much as you want, but what I'm focused on is this community. Now, I realize I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage here. I'm sitting here next to the president of the State of Jefferson Club, but I want to remind the people that have come here today that there are 3 candidates for the 2nd District, and only 2 of them have shown up to speak to you in person, ask you for their vote, and shown you the respect of having you respond to us. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our program for tonight. I want to encourage everybody to please stick around and chat some more with our candidates and our candidates in the audience, Ms. Craig and Mr. Garaventa. So please have some coffee, have some cookies.
Don't forget Kaden.
And there's morning glory seeds back there for people.
Thank you very
Hey, you in the club?
I'm in the club.
No, he's in the movement.
That wasn't the secret handshake. Right.
Is he in a movie yet? Not a club?
I don't think it's a club, right?
The secret handshake.
Good.
I don't